Okay, I've solved the mystery as for that port. So I noticed that when I sprayed cleaner down that tube, down this opening, directly down it, that the cleaner was coming out of this main jet area here. And it turns out that that main jet area is actually an outer ring. So the reason why I couldn't see light shining when I shine the light down here through there is because it's actually it's an inner tube with an outer housing. All right, so you can see what I'm looking at. See that outer circle? That's where that port opens into. So then the question is, well, what the hell's the deal with this thing? It almost appears that when this cover's in place, it's going to completely block that. But under closer inspection, I spied this tiny little hole right there that actually goes straight through. That actually goes straight through to right there. So when this cover's in place, this outer part right here seals and covers that outer ring, except for this tiny little hole right here. So this little tiny little hole acts as some sort of almost like a pilot jet or something. So I got to make sure that's clear. Just a couple of minutes ago, there was a little hunk of black stuff that I pulled off of there. First thought was that it was a piece of this gasket material, but that's still intact. So now my thinking is, what that most likely was a hunk of, quite possibly a hunk of the fuel hose. The rubber hose that runs from the tank down to the carburetor here. What can happen with those is the ethanol additive in the fuel today, that's alcohol, attacks the old formulation of rubber that they used on these hoses back in the day, and can literally eat your hoses from the inside out. And if it deteriorates badly enough, you can actually get little chunks of the rubber hose that will come off and make it into the fuel system. Alright, so the only passage left that I can see that I want to make sure is clean, that I really haven't gotten into yet, is the one that's on the side wall of this opening that goes straight down. There's that port on the side that goes into a tube passageway that's blocked at the end by this brass plug. That travels along this bottom right here and right up to here and feeds this jet. So I'm going to remove that jet again. Okay, I already cleaned this. It's wet with fluid, so it looks like I was getting some fluid in there. The main portion looks clean, but what I'd like to do is see if I can really force some fluid into there. Now it turns out, it appears that with this idle mixture screw removed, with this screw removed, it looks like I can maybe get this tube from the cleaner to sneak in there and line up with that opening. It's not quite straight in line with it. In fact, that's the trick, really. It's not. Here we go. That looks like it's pretty good right there. Alright, I'm going to don some safety glasses just in case things go bad I get a face full of this stuff. That seemed to work. Quite a bit of fluid, cleaning fluid, poured right out of there. So I like that. I'm going to let this carb dry off, and then I'm going to reassemble it. Well, just when I thought I had this thing all cleaned out, I spotted another port. Alright, to the left of my little double ring thing there, you see that little dimple? That little cutout right there on the left in the aluminum body of the carburetor. Turns out that corresponds to that tiny little port you see right there. Managed to forget to hit the record button again. So you missed what I just did, which was I cleared that port, and the way I did it was on my little set here, the smallest wire, I had to cut it at some point, so it's kind of short. I had this other set, and I used the small wire, and I ran the small wire in, and I could actually sight down here and see the tip of the small wire entering that area there, and just kind of rubbed it back and forth a little bit. And then I took my cleaner tube, I put it right over that plastic port there, and I gave it a good shot, and the fluid shot freely out of that orifice down in there. So now I'm satisfied that I've got this carburetor clean. I believe I've hit all of the ports in question, and I think I'm going to be able to start reassembling this. I am going to let this dry some more. That looks pretty good, actually. So I'm going to start reassembling this. And I've already showed the assembly of this thing in the last, what was it, part 5 or part 6? I forgot what part this is going to be. So I'll stop recording at this point until I get to something critical. I just consulted my own video to confirm a couple of tidbits of information that I wasn't sure about. First of which is that this large side here is the intake side going towards the air filter. Small side is the side going towards the engine. The little dam, so to speak, does face this side, which makes sense from a draw point of view off of this main jet. So this being the side towards the engine, the air does flow in this way. It hits that little dam we talked about, and the air path gets kind of spread in two, and the airflow is forced to go around this little area right here. And what that does is that's going to create a negative pressure situation right behind that dam, which is going to have the effect of helping to draw the fuel up out through this main tube right here out of the bowl. So that's definitely the way that that's supposed to go in. Second little bit of information that I couldn't remember was this needle valve right here slips over this metal tang, and I remember when I took this apart I made note of which way this comes off, because you can actually spin this right around this way or this way, and that actually might change the angle just a little bit. So I usually like to put this on. Might be that it wouldn't make a difference at all, but I noticed that these two little loops face the hinge pin with a hinge point, so that's how I'm going to make sure that goes back on, same way that it came out. And the last little bit of information that why am I speaking like that? The last little bit of info was regarding this adjustment screw. And Originally when I took this screw out, before I took it out, I ran it all the way in until it lightly seated, and found that the adjustment that I had on this when I started was 1.5 turns, almost exactly 1.5 turns. So I'm gonna see, that's at 10 o'clock. So that's a half a turn. That's 1 turn. 1.5 turns. Now I'm confident that I'm ready to reinstall this carburetor.